the Managing Director of Trans-Tasman Business Circle, and we welcome you to today's V-Event series with Naomi Simson, the co-founder of the Big Red Group. What a pleasure to welcome Naomi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You've been a trailblazer in terms of everything that you've done with developing the experience market for so many different demographics over such a long period, and you've been a wonderful advocate and champion of small business. Today, our topic is small business, and some of your thoughts and observations and on this very, very important business sector for us. And it's wonderful that you'll be able to share your experiences, but also some ideas in which we can help this sector at this really troubling time. Our V-Event series is our virtual briefing series for the Circle, and we're thrilled to have wonderful support from partners such as CBA, IBM and Red Hat, who are coming along to show their support for business continuity. At our series, we concentrate on business continuity in really challenging times, and the topics we've chosen for our leaders are resilient leadership in challenging times. And it's wonderful to have so many Circle alumni presenting in our program. Last Monday, we featured Chris Quinn, Head of Foodstuffs in New Zealand. Tomorrow, Phil Cronican, Chairman of NAB. Friday, Sir John Key, former Prime Minister of New Zealand and Director of Palo Alto, with the Global CEO of Palo Alto from San Francisco. And we have Nikesh Arora. So it's a wonderful series. We invite you to participate and enjoy. We hope you learn a new idea. We hope you're stimulated and you go away with a new sense of direction, hearing from our leaders on how they're handling these challenging times. So wonderful to have over 100 people registered to listen today. We're recording this session and you can hear the recording afterwards and share it with others. And Naomi's words will go far beyond this broadcast. We like to keep things moving along really quickly at the Circle. So we'll move very shortly to our format. The format for today is Q&A and interaction with the audience. This is not a conventional webinar, this is engagement. And we love you to be able to take part in this program. Our wonderful moderator for today is Caitlin Ruddock. We welcome Caitlin, who's the Director of Corporate Relations Centre at the University of Technology, UTS, here in Sydney. And Caitlin also assists with the Vice Chancellor on innovation in the enterprise, selling corporate university strategy and challenging moments, not only for your sector, but for the students as well. We have a Q&A section. We'll have about 15 minutes Q&A with Caitlin and Naomi. Then we'll have time for Q&A, and you'll be able to submit your questions in the Q&A channel at any time and upload them. And you can also upvote some of the favorite questions that you'd like Caitlin to ask, and they'll move rapidly up the list for her attention. At the end, we'll have a very short poll just to see how business sentiment is. We measure this at every one of our briefings, and we'll read that back to you at the end. And we promise to finish in Australian Eastern Daylight Time of 1:15. Caitlin, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny, and thank you as well to the Circle for facilitating this really important discussion today with Naomi about resilient leadership, and particularly about how we as individuals and as in our organisations that we can support our SME sector, which is really a huge contributor to our economies, and ones that we want to see come through this crisis and, you know, really come out of it and be able to thrive. So I can't think of a better person today to have this conversation with you know, than you, Naomi, because clearly I think today is your anniversary. 19 years ago, you established Red Balloon, and it really was, you know, it created a marketplace for so many SMEs to really better connect to customers and, you know, really create a lot of fantastic experiences. So with that in mind, you know, I'd really love for you to tell us a little bit more about, you know, the SMEs that you began working with, the SMEs you work with today, what you do, and just about their economic contribution to Australia.
Oh, look, thanks so much. Yes, it is kind of ironic that today, the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, is my 19th year since I started my business at home. And here I am at home again. And I didn't realise that I would be such a trailblazer in being productive while having, you know, kids and managing all those things. But what's different now, of course, is we have amazing tools. We have tools that we just didn't have in those days. So, and our connectedness as well, you know, being able to connect to the internet. So the world has changed. It hasn't stood still, clearly, but it is ironic that on my 19th anniversary, I'm working from home, but not so much on my own, because through technology like this, I am connected to my team of 100 employees, which kind of brings me to the point about our impact. So most people know Red Balloon, and they know it as a gifting brand. And whether you've used it personally or you use it as part of your business gifting for reward and recognition or sales incentives, whatever. So people kind of know the Red Balloon brand as a consumer brand or a business brand. But in fact, the premise all those years ago was, in fact, came from my experience as a marketer. So I'd worked for big brands. I'd worked for Apple, IBM, and Ansett. And I was in Ansett when those planes were down during the pilots dispute. So I feel for all of the people in aviation right now and in transport. It is a tough time. But all those years ago, when I left corporate life because I had 2 small children and I wanted to keep my career going, but didn't want to, I wanted to do something different. I basically became a freelance marketer, and I was a marketing consultant. And every single business I went to, when I presented a very sophisticated and fabulous marketing plan, they'd kind of treat it as a shopping list, and they'd tick through and say, we want this, we want that. And I said, no, this is about consistent execution, a single-minded message over a long period of time to build your brand essence. Well, I may as well have been talking, Greek, really, because they didn't get or understand what it was. And what I realized is people just want customers. And so when I flipped my marketing consultancy approach, what I did was create a brand on behalf of 2,500 small businesses. And I just send them customers, and that's what they pay for. Now, if we fast forward, what we've seen over the last year, 2 years, is finding customers for small business has become increasingly expensive. You know, you might hear people say things like the Google tax or the Facebook tax. Now, these are great partners, but if you're not a skilled expert in digital marketing, it's very challenging, can be very expensive. One day you get a customer for $100, the next day you spend your $100 and get nobody. So increasingly, we see that small businesses are needing to aggregate, particularly when it comes to marketing. So Red Balloon is in fact a marketplace that works on behalf of, we have 2,500 experienced suppliers, but within Red Balloon as a business, we have 1,890, many of which I have worked with now for more than 20, well, close to 20 years since we started. So it's actually technically 19, isn't it? I'm exaggerating with the 20, but give me the break on that one.
You're allowed to round.
So when I look to those partners and the impact that we've had, and especially now, so first of all, they were challenged anyway by the changing face of digital marketing. And I was speaking to one of our suppliers, a paddleboarder up in Queensland, and he was sitting next to me at a function. He goes, really nice to meet you, Naomi. I've been a partner of yours for 7 years. And I go, oh, lovely to meet you. And he said, you deliver me 80% of my customers. And I go, oh, wow. And he said, you just need to keep doing what you're doing. And I go, okay, that's amazing. And then recently, because I was speaking to Balloon Aloft, which is a wonderful partner of ours in the Hunter Valley, he said, do you realise that when we started, Naomi, that we had 700 passengers in one balloon. In 2019, they had 19 balloons and 23,000 passengers. And then he said, every single person who comes to us, they always buy more from us. So in other words, they might spend $100 with us, but when they go to the supplier then, they buy a kid's ticket or, souvenirs or whatever. He said, we can count on an uplift of at least another 1.5 times. And then he said, and every single person who comes to the Hunter Valley, they have accommodation, they have transport, they go to a winery, etc. He said, so we know the local contribution is about $700. So $100 is now turned into $700. And according to Austrade, tourism in Australia, for every dollar spent turns into another dollar in terms of economic impact, in terms of the salaries it creates. So we have about 100 employees at the Big Red Group, of which Red Balloon is part of. We have the other brands serving different audiences, but that turns into 50,000 employees within our care. Mm-hmm. And right now, it is really challenging because we're all in the business of bringing people together.
And I guess that's a really, one of the really, I guess, challenging times for us to hear from you about that SME base. I mean, at the start of the year, the Hunter Valley, not quite affected by bushfires, but, a lot of your SMEs would have been floods, and now COVID-19, where, social distancing is really challenging their business models. So what are you hearing from them about how they're trying to, grapple and respond and protect their businesses during this time?
So COVID, let me go back. We had 2 weeks of recovery after the summer from hell. We had 247 different activities that are in the areas that were affected by bushfires. And so we were working very closely with those partners, Kangaroo Island, for instance, calling us during the fire saying, please send customers because it's up the other end. But, consumer sentiment, what it is, we were very much behind the Take Your Esky campaign, which does not work when you are homebound, though you can buy online, of course, to those remote areas and buy local. But for instance, the whale watching boat that we run out of Eden, we bought it to Sydney Harbour to run it out of here so that we could get customers for them. And we had prepared a whole campaign, which was called Support Your Community, and really focusing on delivering business to those experiences who were directly hit from a summer. And I'm not joking, like literally the day that we were to put it in market was the 10th of March. And on the 11th of March, customer sentiment changed in Australia as we began to really consider the seriousness of the circumstance we find ourselves in. And as we've gone to from self-distancing to isolation, that has had an impact. But I must say, here's a few things that I know. One is Australians are resilient and we will adapt and change. And we will, it doesn't feel like a pivot now. It feels like a spin, by the way. Anybody who says they're pivoting their business means that they're spinning. So that's one thing. So I do know that we're resilient. Secondly is there has been a number of initiatives by the government which give us hope and allow us to prepare for the future. So particularly we saw, as soon as the announcement was made on JobKeepers, we saw a shift even in terms of our traffic to our own website, almost like I can relax now. I wouldn't say completely relaxed. Nobody's relaxed. Everybody's anxious, but at least they can begin to think, we will get through this. We'll get to the other side. My job is safe. And so that was a very important step, not just for, yes, we can keep our employees and keep them working productively, but we can also see that the consumer sentiment on the other side. So I do know Australians have always been innovators. We've always been agile. At Red Balloon, for instance, and I'm probably not supposed to say this, but tomorrow we are coming out with our stay-at-home range. And we are working with our suppliers to say, right, what can you do virtually? We've got everything from making kombucha at home to making cheese to whiskey tasting on Sydney Harbour. We've got all sorts of ones. Hula hoop lessons, 75-minute hula hoop lesson would be great. So we're pivoting, but the first thing we're doing is looking after the 2,000 the small businesses that are in our care and helping them to pivot and supporting them with that. What I'm so grateful for is that being in the voucher business, that people, particularly companies, businesses, we've got Mother's Day coming, and we know this from our experience in the UK who had Mother's Day, that the experience companies were still selling vouchers. And what's so important about that is that represents future demand for these small businesses. And if we know that we've got future demand, we can plan for it. Because what I do know is when these restrictions are lifted, we will be supporting Australia domestic travel, and we will just go and do activities. I know that that will happen. So we must make sure we look after our 2,000 small businesses and help them not just survive, but they're ready to thrive on the other side.
So I think I'm going to ask you one more question, and then it's great. I'm seeing the Q&A come from the audience and then switch to them. But I think you've given us some great examples of the resilience and innovation of the SMEs that you're working for and supporting. But how can we, I guess, in our organisations or as individuals, what can we be doing to, you know, really assist SMEs at this time?
Look, there's a few just functional things. You know, I know your finance people are always holding on to every single dollar of cash. Of course they are. That makes it fiscally, you know, responsible. But anybody that you are buying from directly as a small business, please just pay them fast, because there is nothing worse than waiting for a payment, especially when times are really challenging. If their terms are a month, pay them at 7 days. We at Red Balloon have always paid our suppliers before the experience. And what that means is they're never out of pocket. And what it means is my customers get the best service, because we're much loved, because we never ever, you know, that financial stress is one thing that you as big businesses can really help small businesses from. Secondly, is to have the biggest impact is look for the aggregators who represent small businesses. Obviously, I'm self-interested in that. I'm saying Red Balloon, look, if you spend $100 with us, it's going to end up as $1,000 in community. I do know somebody who's just contacted us because they're incentivizing people to come into a webinar like this. They're looking for 2,000 participants, and they said, let me, buy $50 vouchers for the people who register first or whatever it is. And then we were able to show them the impact that that is going to have on community. And it really helps that conversation about buy Australian, buy local, and invest in the future. So look to small business aggregators, particularly because I do understand for big businesses, it can be hard to go through a procurement process. And that's one thing an aggregator does on your behalf, because you only actually have to create a relationship with one partner rather than every partner. And as we like to jest, it's very hard for the jet boaters on the harbour to come into the Commonwealth Bank or IBM or Red Hat and say, hey, would you buy 1,000 jet boats, because it doesn't appeal to everybody. So aggregation is a very good thing. The other thing is that I'm really happy to see some of the large professional services firms and so forth is offering their services on a pro bono and really helping their small business customers with terms. So those people who have subscription models, what can you move out? What can you push out 6 months? We believe that no matter what we're in this for, even if we're allowed out of the house, in terms of economic recovery, we're looking at about an October timeframe. So anything that you can do for your small business customers as well when it comes to terms, and do it automatically without them even having to ask. They're hand to mouth right now. I'm now working, longer hours than I have ever before. It honestly feels like I'm in a startup again. So the energy is flowing, but anything you can do proactively, you will win the hearts and minds of small business customers that will last forever. And to the point of Commonwealth Bank, who are a sponsor here, they have been such a great partner of Red Balloon for 5 or more years. So I'm very grateful for them understanding and really taking the time to understand our business, which is really, I'm very grateful for.
Well, there were some great calls to action, so I hope that we can all take that on board. I've got some questions from the audience for you, and I guess they're wanting your perspective. You talked about your experience in big business, small business, entrepreneurship. So what do you think are the unique challenges for these different size sectors? And I guess how would you recommend, their resilient leadership? What should they be focused on?
Okay, so let's be really clear. We're in a two-speed economy. It's actually a multi-speed economy. We've got those people who are at standstill, those people who are at stand down, and those people who cannot find enough resources to supply whatever they're being. So this is one of the challenges, is it's not a one size fits all. So we have to think about very carefully with all of our programs of work, our marketing and our strategies to make sure we're speaking to the right audience. So I think that that's very an important thing to do. The other thing is emotional resilience at this time is really challenging. There's not one person who isn't anxious. And if it's not anxious in a business sense, it's anxious on a personal sense. You know, my children don't live in Sydney. I don't know when I'm going to see them again. I don't know when I'm going to see my parents again. So we're all anxious. Sorry, we're all anxious. And so we need to be able to be emotionally resilient. And for us and our team, and what I'm talking about is that takes three aspects. First of all is just about safety. Are your people safe? And that is emotionally safe, physically safe, and the workplaces that they've been set up at home, and also financially safe. And that's why JobKeepers was so important to our emotional resilience. Secondly is, do I belong? Do I fit in here? And how am I creating community when it's all virtual and I'm isolated? I need to belong. And thirdly is, does my work matter? Is it worth me toiling away night and day if it doesn't matter? So those three elements of safety, belonging, and my work matters are really important for not just employers, but our community right now. I wrote a blog post yesterday. Also, my third piece is about trust. And who can I trust? And trust has never mattered more. I'm very, very concerned about the impact of social media and fake news or dramatic news. And so I'm very careful to look at the sources of information that I am consuming, because you cannot unsee something and you cannot unread something. And we must look after our own mental health. So I'm looking for trusted advisors, trusted information. And I did write a blog post there yesterday about that.
I think that's some really, some issues that we're really grappling with. It's not just how we support our teams, in their roles, but being cognizant of the personal circumstances that are surrounding that. And I guess that was one of the other questions that someone had who uses Ready about kind of trying to build recognition cultures. And I guess, particularly at the moment when we're now working remotely, I guess what advice do you have to leaders and teams to really build that great recognition culture?
Oh, look, Caitlin, thank you so much. And that you see how lucky are we that we've got the ready.com platform. And one of the things that we're doing in the same, look after people for the future, is that, we can set those programs up for people, and you can give awards that don't have any dollar value to them, because right now it is about noticing what people do, which is the point about the third element of resilience is does my work matter? Well, does anybody notice? And with this Ready platform that we use, it plugs directly into, we use Microsoft Teams, but there is, Yammer, and there is all of the, well, what's the other one we used to use? But anyway, it plugs straight into all of those intranets and things, so that people can see literally a feed of recognition coming through. And it is just so delightful, because we are asking our people to perform miracles. And it doesn't matter where we are in the economy, at stand down, stand still, or uplift. We are needing miracles from people. And the thing that we need to do is just notice. We are all humans muddling our way through as best as we possibly can. So recognition has never been more important, and having it being able to be delivered electronically and transparently so everybody can see it, it's incredibly valuable for our team, and I know also for the many clients that we have on that ready.com platform.
That is, again, I think putting people first and recognizing them, digitally as you would have in person is, again, great advice that I think we can all follow. One of the questions is really, as a CEO in the last couple of weeks, what are the types of things that you have had to respond to, which you maybe haven't had to previously?
Yeah, I just need to clarify, I'm not the CEO, and I'm very grateful for my business partner, David Anderson, who is the group CEO. And we have a number of brands which sit inside the Big Red Group, of which I'm the founder of Red Balloon. But my job within the group is far more about being outbound relationships and working with our corporate clients. Believe it or not, I'm back designing programs for our corporate clients, which is, I love it actually. It's like being back in the saddle, which is fantastic. So I'm not the CEO, but the two of us as partners are dealing with some very big issues together. One of that was to look at our defense strategy, and the second was to look at our offense strategy. So first of all, having a good hard look at our profit and loss, our cash flow, and our balance sheet. What of the short-term projects was a nice to have? What of the long-term projects was an essential to have? And a long-term strategy is not a bunch of short-term strategies or programs bunched together. So what was it? Could we go slow on? What should we go fast on? And that was a pretty hard and tough decision, just in terms of our capital investment. But if we don't invest capital now, we will not be ready for the other side. So we understand it is absolute balancing act. And we went through every single line stripe. So my recommendation there is who owns which line of the P&L and the balance sheet, including every item of software. Are we using it? How much are we using it? Have we got too many licenses? All of those sorts of things. So that rationalization, and obviously cash is king right now. So that's been quite challenging. The other thing, which is really hard, is navigating consumer sentiment. Now, I'll give you an example. We have 900,000 consumer campaigns through our AI tool, Albert, for our consumer marketing. And now consumer sentiment changed overnight. And we are working so hard and so fast. We have all hands on deck to adjust our creative to be appropriate. And it's heartbreaking when people go, you're still trying to tell us to go outside. We're going, we're just doing it as fast as we possibly can. So many, like I know, the big retailers and so forth, their promotion cycle is 3 to 6 months in advance. So, you've got to pull everything, you've got to stop everything, and you've got to rejigger. And the other thing is literally customer sentiment is changing day by day, and our ability to test concepts and adapt is also really hard. Brand damage can happen in this point too if you just absolutely miss the message. So we're working really hard on those things.
And that probably relates. One of the questions we had was the biggest challenge that you're facing in your business right now. And so is it that fast-paced change of, customer expectation and sentiment, or do you have other challenges that are really you're grappling with?
Oh, our direct book business is obviously on hold, but our voucher business is still is actually still going well. In fact, as I said, our business customers are really looking to thank their people, and I think that's fine. But I think the hardest thing is just not knowing when this is going to finish, or how we're getting to a new normal. I heard this thing, is this the new normal of an hour ago, or is this the new normal of now? It's changing that rapidly. And if I knew it was going to be 3 months, I'd plan for 3 months. If I knew it was 6, I'd plan for 6. So we got our planning cycle in a 6-week cycle. We are going to push for Mother's Day, because mothers are, like me, as anxious as I'm sure dads are too. I'm not saying they're not, but it is Mother's Day, and many mums are going to be celebrating Mother's Day virtually this year. We want them to have something to look forward to on the other side of getting together with their families, because that's what mum wants. So it's a 6-week cycle, and we are just having to adapt wherever we can to make sure we get our messages right. And it is the most challenging time.
And with that, I mean, one of the questions, it is a challenging time. So what makes you optimistic, Naomi?
No, I was born positive. And, what's the point in being glum? And, it's not to say I haven't had some pretty hard times. This is my life's work, is supporting this community. And when they tell you what's happening, it is heartbreaking. Like, and by nobody's fault. And it's a very unconstructive thing to blame people. Just don't blame anybody. That's not helpful. There is nobody to blame here. And so that's just really hard. Well, I'm talking about people's life's work, including my own. But, the thing is, I believe in Australia. I believe in Australians' resilience. We've got through tough times before. I know we all like hanging out together. I'm in the business of getting people together. At some point, even if it has to all be virtual, at some point, that will be okay. So I'm a believer, and I'm a believer in Australians. And New Zealanders. Oops, I forgot to say that. Of course, we've got Ripple in New Zealand, and we've got lots of New Zealand people on the call.
We do indeed.
We're all together. Oh gosh, I'm going to get some abuse on that one now.
I guess you alluded to it before, that I think, you wrote on your blog last night about trust. And, again, there's a lot of noise going around in the community about COVID. And I guess people are interested in your recommendations about how they can get their message to their audiences to stand out and be trustworthy.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And sometimes it's okay to be silent. And I know that really sounds odd as a marketer, but if I look at my inbox now, clearly marketers have more time on their hands than they had before, because I'm getting a lot of emails. And I don't want the local, somebody, a local store to be advising me on COVID-19. That's not where I get my advice from. I get it from health.gov.au. So the most important thing when you're thinking about your comms strategy is about, what role do I play in this person's life, and am I relevant? And it's a fine line between looking opportunistic and being supportive and helpful. And so that's what we are navigating when it comes to messages. So quite frankly, right now, we're not sending out a lot of things on a broad brush. We may try some things early next week, but when we go out to our corporate and our ready customers, we're just going to say, we're here to help. Here's some things that are helping us. So our job there is to be supportive. And that is a role that we play, because that's who we are, and that's the job we have been hired to do for those businesses. So our job at this point is different than what it previously was.
And again, I think that's such a nuanced and great advice about, sometimes it's okay to be silent, but we would have a number of marketers on this call who are probably personally nervous that often marketing is one of the first places where funds and headcount get cut. And I guess they're just asking your thoughts on how this might be different this time. What are the conversations they should be having, perhaps internally in their organisations, about the role of marketing can play at this time and, for the rebound in the future?
So marketing is not promotion. And people often forget that. They think you're the publicity department or the push, push, push promotion department. Well, you're not. Marketers look at pricing, they look at distribution, and they look at what your product is. Now is the time for marketers to do some deep thinking and really, really good work. You're going to be the ones who finally get to all that data, the analytics, and create strategies for coming out on the other side. So for me, this is the best time for my marketers to get onto the projects they'd always promised me they were going to get to, so that we're working on the important, not rushing to the urgent. And that's a real message for marketers to say, we are the voice of the customer, but we're more so the ears of the customer. And that's why marketing is needed now, because you want to set yourself up for cohesive and overall campaigns and programs of work. You are not the promotions department.
Yep, no, that is, I think I love that idea of, you know, that opportunity for deep thinking. I think we can all take that on board. I guess one last question potentially, but is really about, what are your thoughts about, you know, I guess the government's response to COVID, and, you know, what are some long-term changes that you think may, I guess, affect SMEs and, I guess, Australia and New Zealand?
I think I won't make any political statements because I don't think I'm qualified to, and even necessarily economic ones. But what I am pleased to see is the national leaders getting together every day and having a really cohesive approach, even though there's nuances in each of the states. I think that, you know, that's a great lesson for everyone in their businesses, which is keep your leaders safe. Safe. Of course, keep your leaders safe, but keep them close as well. And one of the things that we've worked really hard on is creating the cadence of how our leadership team comes together, then how our heads of, and then how our people managers, and then how things are cascading up again. So I think it shows us a rhythm of communication, and it's that keeping people close, which will serve small businesses on the other side. You know, people often say to me, oh, but you've only got 100 in the team, you can still get them in the huddle, which is true. Even online, we can still all get together in an all-hands company meeting, which is very valuable. It's really valuable. So small businesses can do that. The other thing is our CFO, when he started his career, he was working in insolvency. And he said he could almost tell from the moment he went on site of if this was going to be a business that survived or thrived or wasn't going to be here. And he said it was always the respect and cohesion of the leadership team and the sense of culture of the organisation. And he said it was absolutely predictable before he'd looked at the balance sheet. Now, we find ourselves in extraordinary circumstances where we don't know if that cohesion is going to be enough and culture is going to be enough, but it's a pretty good place to start.
I think, yeah, isn't it? Culture trumps strategy. I always get my analogies mixed up, but I think it's really important that we focus on that at the moment. What is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the past few weeks that you could share with us all?
I don't have to do everything myself. I've gone so back into Mrs. Startup. Oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And my poor team are having to coach me. It's okay. We've got this. We've got this. We've got this. Don't worry. You know, we've got this. So, you know, I had very effectively got my role into rhythm externally, you know, as a keynote speaker and doing all the things and being outward bound. I guess you know, trust and they've got it. They're such an amazing team. They know the brands inside out. My role is really mentor and coach. So I think we can all breathe. This is a new normal. We are going to be tougher, stronger, more streamlined than we were before, and we have the opportunity to set ourselves up. Small business is the backbone of Australia. Small business represents something like 97% of the organisations in the whole country, and is such a big employer, and their families right now are dependent on big business buying from them.
Absolutely. And I guess with that in mind, you talked again about, how innovative SMEs have been. And really, I guess it's up for some of us to now, I guess, who can support them to support them. But, is the crisis of such a scale that, for some SMEs, is it just getting battered from too many sides to be able to innovate? Or do you think that, they are really focused on the future?
It's not a homogeneous group, and there's some that will and there's some that won't. There's some who are set for retirement and they're like, I'm out, I'm done, I'm sick of it. So I cannot speak on behalf of, what is literally millions of small businesses. So, but what I do know is that as a people, everybody now is looking for a side hustle. I think entrepreneurship will be on the rise. I've noticed the book sales of my Ready to Soar book have gone up. How do I start my business? I think that's pretty fun. And so a lot of people will start a side hustle, or are finally going to get onto their entrepreneurial idea. So look, I believe in people, and I will always remain positive because why not? The sun came up this morning. I'm breathing fresh air. I didn't all summer, with that smoke. So I'm feeling very grateful that I live here. And how lucky New Zealand is to be able to sell their fresh air. Just pointing out, it's pretty lucky to be in New Zealand as well.
And we're getting towards the end, but I guess, is there any other, you've covered such a range of, topics today, and I think given us some really, great food for thought about what we can be doing in our own organisations and just, as individuals, to remain positive in what is sort of unprecedented times. But I guess any final thoughts or, issues you would like to share with this audience about?
Oh, can I just show this one slide? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but I guess this is my kind of, here we go. Let's have a look and see if this works. Can anybody see that? Just Australians pulling together, give Australia. That's my little message to everybody. And now I've got to work out how to stop sharing it. Here we go. I think I've done it. There you go. That's it. That's my single message. Give Australian. Support Australian. Australian owned. We'll be fine. And of course, New Zealand as well. Buy New Zealand. Buy local. Those sorts of things. I don't know how to escape from this now. I've put this thing up and now I can't do it.
It's good. I think that's a great message about supporting local and putting people first. So, and our communities first, and really having that mindset.
Thank you. I'm as blind as a bat, so it's very hard to sit here and not see anything. I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing. We'll get better at this.
And Caitlin and Naomi, thank you so much. That stimulating session. And Naomi, as a Kiwi, thank you for us. Thank you for giving us a plug. We are family, and we're never far away. And thank you for, ensuring that we're part of the Embrace community that you've built over time, and a really beautiful session. Thank you so much. And we're now moving to the poll section, and shortly, in fact now, we've got 1 minute or even 30 seconds. We've got 5 quick questions. If you could just complete those, and we'll see how everybody feels. How do you feel as a business person now? Is the government doing a good job? For your business planning, when do you think this will be over? And then we've got a couple of specific questions concerning SMEs, which we hope Naomi will find beneficial. While you're filling that out, Naomi, thank you again. You blended economics, community, empathy, and above all, resilience. And that's the theme of our series. How can we just derive insights from those who are going through it, from different scales, from big business to small business? You've been at the cutting edge of your small business suppliers through the terrible, terrible fires, the floods, and now this. And probably in 3 months, small business would never have gone through such a time. And the fact that you're a platform for their optimism and a platform for their capability is a tribute to you. You're in the right place at the right time. You had a vision 19 years ago, and the vision is still true. Build community, build optimism, and build growth. We thank you so much for your time. And this is really the theme of our series, resilient leadership and continuity and some degree and absolute empathy in the community. This is a theme, again, we thank our partners, CBA, IBM and Red Hat, for showing their support for this essence of business at this time. Continuity, community and empathy. We could not do these series without our partners, and we're very, very thankful for them. And now we'll find the poll findings. I'll pass over to Tracy, who will just share us in with the poll finding. Okay, we hope you see them now. Most of you feel innovative and challenged. Thankfully, only 2% scared. Yesterday we had 1%. The Kiwis are a similar this end of the scale. The government doing a good job. And also very high as we had yesterday. For your business planning, when will your estimate be over? Tracy will just share those in a moment. As I scroll down, apologies. Anyway, you see the results, and we'll be aggregating those and letting everyone out that to the market once a week, just to get a gauge of how we're all feeling. Thank you so much for joining us today. Caitlin, thank you for wonderful moderation. Naomi, keep smiling, keep helping. Thank you very much for joining everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.